Okay.
All right, so here is my 5-second introduction for you guys. First off, I want to show you something here. This is a different approach to an editing kind of a program, a CRUD kind of a thing. I showed you where things were just listed off in text, and then each one had its own edit and delete button. Here's a different way to do it. Okay? Notice I can select from a list here, and then I have a single set of buttons down at the bottom with add, edit, or delete. This here, if we look at the, I just press Control U to pull up the source here, and if I come down to my list, you'll see all these value equal. Guess what those values are?
Arbitrary?
No, well they are arbitrary, but what are they?
Primary key?
It's the ID, okay? It's the ID into the table that I'm doing CRUD on. So when I'm over here and I press this and then I click on edit, then it knows, notice up here, prayer ID equals 368 and form action equals edit. So then I know what to do and it comes in here, all right? Now the one other thing I wanted to show you about this is just a very easy example of using Ajax here. So if I just look at this, these are prayer requests for the lutia.org prayer website that I keep up. And if you look at these, you can see, well, I can't tell what the whole thing is, right? Because it goes too far off to the side. But if I click on one, then I've used Ajax so that down here, it just pulls up the whole thing and I can see the whole description. I click on a different one and it pulls up a different thing. And it gives me other information that's in there. So this is just a... that one happens to be an announcement rather than a prayer request. Okay. There's a prayer request. There's a prayer request.
No, it says let's pray for
Okay. A lot of our prayer requests start with verses and then go on from there. Okay? So anyway, this is just a different way of doing it. Rather than printing it off and having multiple buttons, you have a single list, and down below you have buttons down there. I said before that these were standard ways to do it. In actual fact, the standard way to do this is using something called Model Control View, MCV. Okay, Model Control View.
Mobile Construction Vehicle.
And it is officially out of scope for this class. But if you are going to get into this stuff in a big way, you don't want to be doing it on your own. All right? And maybe on next Tuesday, maybe I'll show you an example where I create CRUD for a table, and I will do it in about 45 seconds using MCV rather. Okay?
So it's a lot easier if you know how to do it?
Well, you can bake it, is what they call it. I'm using a tool called Cake PHP, and once I've described my tables to the tool, then it says, well, what do you want? You want the update capability? Great. You want an administrative framework? Great. You want to, it just spits it out and does all the coding for you, which you can then come behind and change it a little bit to make it pretty. But it's a much quicker way to do it. You need to know how to do it vanilla, like you're doing now, but if you're going to do it on a long-term basis, you need to know that you're not going to be nearly as productive doing it the way you're doing it now as you will be if you get into an MCV kind of a framework. Okay? The one other thing I wanted to show you, I'm sure you guys all really appreciate the look and the feel of this page, how much time I spent into making it look beautiful. You like that?
Very
I do like
Okay. Joshua in particular was impressed with the other site where it actually did have a little bit of CSS going on with it.
Which one?
The purchasing thing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I personally don't do CSS because I am very aesthetically challenged. I'm not into look and feel of things. I recognize my son is constantly berating me and abusing me for my lack of beauty in my websites. But anyway, Joshua, you had asked, should we be doing CSS? You are welcome to do as much CSS as you want. I am not going to be requiring it, and so it is above and beyond. It may be considered as part of your extra 30% or 20%. Remember I said 70 or 80% will be the CRUD on those 4 or 5 tables, and then the other 20 or 30% will be some additional functionality on top of that. And if I see a lot of CSS, I'll say, yeah, he's put a lot of work in that. I'll give him 10% for his CSS work. If I see the ability to sign up, that's above and beyond a normal CRUD capability and to be able to sign up for particular slots. Christopher with his sign up, all that is really is inserting into the users table, but it's much more complicated than a standard CRUD, and so I'll give credit for part of that extra 20 or 30%. So probably if you're doing something beyond just editing the tables, then I'm probably going to give you at least some portion of that 20 to 30%. In all practicality, if you've done a good job, and I see all you guys working hard at this, I'm not too worried about it. I'm planning on giving everybody a good grade. But do remember, you have to do full CRUD on 4 to 5 tables, and then there has to be some other kind of functionality. If there's a question mark in your mind, am I doing enough on this to get the full 20 or 30%? Ask me. I'll tell you right up front. Okay? Very good. Bye, Joshua.